The art of teaching music. Woo! Well, teaching music is our passion. And welcome to the Ultimate Music Teachers Live Show, the place where we harmonize teaching techniques, compositions, and the life of a music teacher into the symphony of education, education and success, and personal growth. I'm your host, Gloria St. Germain, CEO and author of the Ultimate Music Theory Workbook series. And with me is the ever-inspiring and lovely Miss Joanne Barker, my co-host and fellow music education enthusiast. And together, we're here to enrich lives through music education. So Joanne, are you ready to dive into the art of teaching music today?
Definitely ready to dive in, Gloria. It's always a pleasure, to explore the depth of music education and to share our insights with listeners. It gives us a chance to reflect on things and to maybe explore something we hadn't thought about before. So let's strike that chord with our audience today.
Absolutely. Moving to sort of a more delicate subject is students quitting. That's a big one, right? Yeah. Understanding and dealing with the reasons why students quit music. And it can feel like, a sudden rest in our melody. I would almost call it a fermata on top of that rest. It kind of disrupting the flow of our teaching and their learning journey as well. And I think understanding the why behind their decision is really crucial. And sometimes, it's a lack of practice, it's a lack of motivation, and other times it's because we're not connecting with that student personally, or perhaps it's because we're not connecting with the music that they're passionate about, or perhaps it's that we're just not connecting in their learning style because of our own teaching style. So we got a lot of things that come into play, right, Joanne?
Absolutely. It's like trying to tune into a faint melody in a busy composition to try to figure out what isn't resonating, what isn't working. So we need to listen to their concerns. I had one student once that he was in a group class and he would just bounce off the walls. And his mom's like, he's never like this. I don't know what's wrong. Well, I'm kind of a high energy person. And when he was in my presence, he fed off my energy and took his energy to the next level. So, we can't be everything to everybody. So to acknowledge that is okay. We need to offer that varied repertoire, not just in music material, but in the way we present it, and adjust the teaching methods. I'm a very visual learner. Perhaps the student is a very auditory learner or a very kinesthetic learner. So we tend to want to teach in the way that we are used to doing things ourselves, but we have to remember that not everybody, learns the same way we learn. It's about tuning into that, to make it a captivating, to turn into the rest, to make it a captivating format. You just don't want to go and pause. You want the pause to be meaningful. We want to make it, joyful and just make their experience with us more worthwhile, I guess is the word I'm looking for there. Sometimes, a simple change in our approach can make all the difference.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think a question that comes to mind is, how can we as music teachers tune into the unique needs of each individual student and prevent them from quitting or from hitting the pause in their musical journey? And I'm curious, I would love to hear from our music teachers, share in the chat, what are your ideas? What strategies have you implemented that worked for you in your students? Because it's all about sharing, right? And perhaps it's time to just think about that and share that with us in the chat. How are you feeling about that, Joanne?
Yeah, it's really important to think about what's worked, what hasn't worked. And if you put it out there, like in the chat here in this Facebook group, this is a safe place to post those questions. Like, what I'm having this struggle. This student just quit, and we've had a couple of teachers in our UMT membership who've just kind of gone through that themselves. It's that time of year, maybe. Is it that time of their life? Maybe. Is it just that they need a change? And sometimes they don't articulate that to us really well. So one thing I really appreciate about the Elite Educator training was learning about the different learning styles, because like I said earlier, like, we're used to the way we learn. There was one little girl and she was great. She could sight read anything. And I was teaching her this piece and I said, just picture this and the girl's doing this and, she's on the swing. And the mother said, there's no point explaining that to her. All you have to do is play it and she'll play it back. She was a 100% auditory learner. And I felt sorry for her because she's never going to tap into that side. So we kind of have to help those
Yes.
auditory learners learn how to picture something. And for those of us who are visual, we need to kind of learn how the auditory to kind of perceive it auditorily instead of just the visual way we do. I see everything as a metaphor in life. Students don't see everything the same way. So we've got to really tune into the different needs that our students have, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, let's talk a little bit about the transition of, transitioning learners to reading music. You mentioned, and it's just so perfect that you brought that up, Joanne, because we talk about auditory learners. There's visual, there's auditory, there's kinesthetic learners. But what happens when you engage in teaching in all three modalities, that's kind of when the magic happens. Mm-hmm. So when we think about transitioning those auditory learners to, reading music, we want to be able to harmonize our discussion towards, let's say, for example, YouTube learners. So they've got the ear for music, so we know they're passionate about it, but we need to gently guide them towards reading the language of music, and we can use sheet music, or we can use, music books or whatever it is, but we want to have this whole learning process, because we want to help these musicians become lifelong learners, right?
Exactly. It's like they've been improvising their musical journey all along, and we're introducing them to the grand score of written music. Honestly, hands up, how many people have had somebody contact them and say, I can't believe how musical my grandchild, my child, whatever is. A dear friend, she's, university professor, very educated woman. She's got a little granddaughter, and she said, my granddaughter is so musical. And I said, isn't that wonderful? Think about it for a minute. When we're conceived, we hear a beat all the time inside of our mom. We're born hearing. Those of us who are blessed with hearing, we're born hearing. So of course we're auditory learners to begin with, because that's all we have to rely upon, isn't it? So when that person comes to you and says, oh, I can't believe how musical my grandchild is, go, that's fabulous. Here's my card. Let's get them signed up for life. I think it's really important, because the YouTube phenomenon is massive. And in a lot of Facebook groups, seeing teachers who are really struggling with the students who, they're mimicking, they're imitating, they don't know what they're playing. My son can play the Moonlight Sonata, but he can't play grade 8 music, but he can play the Moonlight Sonata because he watched the fingers on YouTube one day do it. So we need to integrate those pieces in. But as the story you've told with one of the teachers who said that with the child who was so auditory, and then she played the piece for him and said, we're going to learn this. And then they broke it down, right? So chunking things, because we're not going to be with them all the time. YouTube's not going to be with them all the time. Maybe there's a piece that's maybe not on YouTube they want to learn. We need to gift them with the language of music as well. So we want to make them understand there's a really good benefit to reading music and to learning it, because it's the gift of being able to unlock so much more. We want to make them into well-rounded musicians, and we want to enrich their understanding and their performance of what they're doing.
Yeah, so well said, Joanne. And when you think about it, we first hear the language that we speak, whatever language that might be. And the same kind of goes for music. You're right. The first thing you hear is heartbeat, right? That pulse, that rocking motion in a child. And then you learn to speak the language and you learn to read the language. And I think this is really important that we provide that to our students. And I'm curious, for our music teachers, if you could share in the chat with us, how can we creatively integrate reading music into our lessons for learners who primarily learn by ear, so that we can show them the beauty and the depth of the musical scores? So make sure that you're sharing your ideas here. One of the stories that you told, Joanne, just to expand on that, was the music teacher who reached out. She's one of our Ultimate Music Theory certified teachers. She's in our Elite Educator program. And she called me up. She said, Gloria, I've got to share this story with you. This student that I was kind of a disconnect. I wasn't really connecting, and I didn't know why, because I taught this young man for, several years, and we liked each other, but there was just something that wasn't working. And he always asked me if I could play it for him. And I always said, no, read your music. No, read your music. She said, because I can't play by ear. She said, I have to have music. And as he walked in the door, and she had taken the certification, and she said, I thought, you know what, I'm going to implement what I've learned. So she said, I'm going to play this for you. It was the Addams Family. Ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. And so she played it for him, and she took the book away, and they traded places, and the student sat down and played it. And she was in shock because she said, I couldn't do it. But she said, when I put the music in front of him, the light bulb went on, and he started to connect the language, the written language of music theory, with what he could hear. And then he said, can I learn another piece? Because now he was understanding this. And I think this is the beauty of giving students a full spectrum of music education. It is about learning how to listen, about learning how to read, and of course, being creative as well. So share your ideas with us. Joanne and I are just brainstorming out loud.
Well, and you just made me think of another idea. I have 2 adult students right now. One is same age as me, went to a prestigious music university here in Canada, and has a degree in music, in voice. And she's coming to me for lessons now. And she said, I didn't learn it this way. I didn't understand why these things happen. I didn't have the theory knowledge. Like she said, I memorized the theory that I was learning. I didn't understand and know it. And another one, and this is a really good one for those auditory ones, why you can tell them that it's a good idea to learn to read music. One has her grade 8 in piano several years ago. She's now a church musician. Hands up for all the church musicians who know where I'm going with this topic. She gets the music on Thursdays.
Yeah.
And has to play it on Sundays. And she's a good sight reader. This week I was teaching her the trick of simplification, because some chord progressions in some hymns are just, dare I say, horrendous. So I was teaching her how to simplify the bass and make it a little more substantial sounding at the same time. And her sight reading little eyes were just reading every single note in there. And she's like, this is a real skill I have to learn. Yeah, it is. Because some pieces from Thursday to Sunday, you're not going to feel confident playing for church.
Right.
And I was also teaching her how to substitute hymns, one tune for another. So there's so much, and like there's some really good jobs to be had being that church organist on Sundays or the church pianist on Sundays. So we want to gift our students. Actually, I had a student and I trained him to fill in for me at church. He's now been for the last, I think, 15 years now, church musician at another church. So it turned into, he's got a great job, full-time job, but he also does this on the side and loves doing it. So we want to give them that gift of understanding the language of music, not just being able to hear it and fake it. We want to be able to read it. And it's so important to have that deeper understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just such a great segue that brings us to the third part of our topic today, which is the art of teaching theory. And it is, in fact, an art. Mm-hmm. You know, the foundation of the music itself is theory. And for those that say, well, I don't teach music theory. Well, in fact, you do, because you can't even sing an interval of a second or a third or anything else if you don't know what that interval is. And it's the theory behind the music that makes sense, right? That helps us really understand. So it's not just about reading the notes, it's about understanding the story that they're telling, and also the emotion, you know, through articulation and dynamics and tempo and keys and all the rest of it that goes into it. And one of the things that I really am passionate about, obviously, is music theory. I'm the author of the Ultimate Music Theory program. And we really invite you as music teachers to explore what's possible for you inside the Ultimate Music Teachers membership. So if you check it out, teachumt.com, and we're here for you, and you can absolutely join us.
Totally. You know, theory's like the script for our musical performance. When we can use engaging tools like the workbooks, like, oh my goodness, when I took your certification course, back in 2012, suddenly they just all made sense. Like there's tools. It's not shortcuts. It's not memorizing things. It's understanding why. Like I was teaching a class of grade 1 piano students, level 1 piano students this week. They're not supposed to be learning level 5 theory, but I taught them the circle of fifths in one lesson, and they understood it with the minors. So like they're capable of understanding this. It's all in how we present it to them, right? Yeah. If you're presented and here's the way you figure it out. But if you make it fun and you make it engaging and you make them understand the why behind it, it just makes so much more sense. And to have the games and stuff, I just love making games, and my students are really happy to test new games for me all the time. You know, you can see the games and the worksheets that Madame Sheila makes, and so much more at teachumt.com, and you can discover how you can easily implement these great tips and tricks to really help your students understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And a question for our music teachers. Can you share what innovative ways you teach music theory? I'm really curious to make it engaging and an integral part of your students' music education. So we love to hear from you guys. Let's give us a share.
It truly is the key to have success in music education. If we don't understand, I'll be honest, I used to fake the bass clef.
Yeah.
I think that's why I like jazz chords so much, because I would get C and A and G and B mixed up. And I was in like grade 4 piano because I didn't know them. I memorized things, but there's such a difference between memorization. I knew this person once who had a photographic memory, and he just aced his exams in university. I sure hope he didn't go into brain surgery. Right? Because we don't want them just to memorize things. We want to understand. And I find that music theory conveys over so much into students' lives. We have a student right now who has a conflict because he's going to hockey skills class. Yeah. And so I've had to reschedule him, and I willingly did so. And I said to him, do you know why you're going to skills class? And his dad was in the background. Dad's coaching the skills class. And it's like you need to know the hows. You need to know how to do a crossover. You need to know how to turn around when and you know how to hold your stick. That's why we learn about theory. That's why we learn scales. That's why we learn chords. That's the skills behind the music. So it's so important because we really want to give them the gift of understanding.
Yeah, absolutely, Joanne. So as we close today's show, we want to remember that teaching music is a journey with its own dynamics and tempos and rhythm. And whether it's understanding student challenges or finding new ways to teach or learn, or even reinventing ourselves, we can do that as well in our professional development. We're here to support you in composing the ultimate music teaching experience. So we want to invite you to join us at teachumt.com.
We want to thank you for tuning in today. Gloria just made me think of a great song. Donny Osmond released an album about 2 years ago now, and the song is Starting Over. It's never too late to start again. So to reinvent yourself, to add theory into your curriculum now, it's not too late. Join us at teachumt.com, and you're going to find out so much more information, and it's going to help you crescendo your way to greatness.
Absolutely. And with that, we want to say, with gratitude from us to you, this is Gloria St. Germain and Ms. Joanne Barker signing off to stay musical. And until next time, teach with passion. Bye now.
Bye-bye.